Welcome to Live a Supercharged Life, the podcast that ignites your energy and uplifts your spirit. This is your go-to space for navigating love, relationships, and personal growth.
Interesting.
A lot packed into that one sentence, huh?
It really is. You've got energy, spirit, love, relationships, personal growth, all kind of bundled together.
It's like they're saying those things are all connected somehow.
Right.
Like they all influence each other.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to deep dive into today.
Okay, sounds good.
So first things first, what even is a supercharged life?
Good question.
Like when you hear that phrase, what pops into your head?
Well, I think most people would probably think about like being super successful, you know?
Yeah, like crushing it in your career. Right. Or maybe having tons of energy to do all the things you want to do.
Traveling the world.
Yeah, all of that.
But it also mentions uplifting your spirit.
That's an interesting part.
Makes me think of like spirituality or religion or something.
Yeah, it could be that for some people.
But I feel like it could also be something else.
Definitely. I think it's about cultivating a positive mindset, focusing on the good, even when things are tough.
So like inner strength, resilience.
Yeah. And maybe even a sense of purpose, like you know why you're here and what you're meant to do.
Okay, so we've got energy, we've got spirit, and then it throws love and relationships into the mix.
Right. And that's where things get really interesting, I think.
Because relationships can be super challenging.
Totally. They can take a lot of work.
So how do they fit into this idea of a supercharged life?
Well, I think the statement is hinting at the idea that our internal state influences our relationships.
Like if we're feeling drained and exhausted, we're not going to be the best partner or friend.
Exactly. But if we're feeling energized and fulfilled in our own lives, then we can bring more to those relationships.
More love, more patience, more understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, this is starting to make sense.
That's all connected, right?
Right. So where does personal growth come in?
That's the key, I think.
Because it feels like personal growth is often seen as this separate thing.
Right, like something you do on your own time.
But maybe it's actually the foundation for everything else.
I think so. Personal growth is about becoming more self-aware, understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and working on those things.
So you're basically saying that by working on ourselves,
Yeah.
we create the conditions for better relationships, more energy, a more uplifted spirit.
Exactly. It all starts with us.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling inspired,
Me too.
thinking about all the ways I could maybe supercharge my own life, you know?
Yeah, it's like a challenge.
A challenge to really examine those different areas.
Yeah.
Energy, spirit, love, relationships, personal growth,
And see how they're all playing out in our lives.
and how we can make adjustments to create that more fulfilling life.
And I think that's the real takeaway here. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional.
Yeah.
It's about making choices that align with our values and our vision for ourselves.
So if this statement were the tagline for your life, what would need to change to make it a reality?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's the question for all of us, I think. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.
And until then, keep on supercharging your life. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a question that, honestly, a lot of people probably think is impossible. Can a relationship actually recover after, cheating?
It's a tough one for sure.
Yeah.
We've got some fascinating research from a relationship expert that we're going to unpack today. And believe it or not, it suggests that healing is possible.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like this is one of those topics that people have really strong opinions on. Like, once a cheater, always a cheater, that kind of thing.
It definitely sparks a lot of debate, and rightfully so. The pain of infidelity, I mean, it's undeniable.
Yeah.
But what I find fascinating is that despite that pain, a surprising 60% of couples actually choose to try and rebuild.
60%. Wow. That stat honestly blew me away. I was expecting it to be way lower, like maybe 10% or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that really makes you wonder what drives that decision to stay and try to work things out after something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think it speaks to, the complexity of relationships. Love and commitment, they don't just vanish overnight, even when trust has been broken. It's a testament to, I think, the human capacity for forgiveness, resilience, and, that deep desire to preserve a bond that might hold years of shared history.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established that some couples do try to rebuild, but how do you even begin to mend something so shattered?
Yeah.
I mean, where do you even start?
Well, the expert we're diving into today really emphasizes that it's not about just sweeping the infidelity under the rug and pretending it didn't happen. It's more about acknowledging the depth of the pain, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the underlying issues that may have contributed to the betrayal and committing to this, long and often difficult process of rebuilding trust.
I imagine that's where things get really tricky, right? Because we're not just talking about, like, hurt feelings.
Yes.
We're talking about a fundamental breach of trust.
Exactly. And that's what the research really dives into. This profound emotional trauma that infidelity causes. It's really about a violation of safety and security within the relationship.
Right.
It can trigger deep-seated insecurities, resurface past hurts, and just make it incredibly difficult to feel safe and vulnerable again.
It's interesting, too, because the source also highlights that cheating isn't always just about physical intimacy.
Oh, yeah.
It mentions emotional cheating and even cyber infidelity as real forms of betrayal.
Sure.
It makes you wonder how the rise of online spaces and social media, like all that stuff, has changed the landscape of infidelity.
Totally. It's definitely a conversation worth having. The accessibility of online connections, it's created these new opportunities for emotional intimacy and even secrecy that didn't exist in the past.
Right.
It's kind of blurred the lines in a way. It makes it harder to define what actually constitutes infidelity. Yeah. And it creates new challenges for couples trying to navigate these complex dynamics.
Absolutely. The article actually quotes a relationship counselor who says that infidelity can shatter the very foundation of a relationship, leaving both partners feeling lost and unsure of the future.
It's such a powerful quote, It really captures the magnitude of the betrayal and the sense of devastation it can leave in its wake.
Yeah.
It's not just a bump in the road.
Right.
It's an earthquake that shakes the very core of the relationship.
So where do you even begin to pick up the pieces? Like, can you ever truly rebuild trust after such a massive breach?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The research acknowledges that it's incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
But it also affirms that, yes, relationships can work after cheating, but it requires a monumental effort from both partners.
Right.
A deep commitment to healing and a willingness to do the hard work of rebuilding trust brick by brick.
I'm really curious about what that hard work actually looks like.
Yeah.
What are some of the concrete steps couples can take to start rebuilding?
Well, one of the foundational principles highlighted in the research is radical honesty. The unfaithful partner needs to be completely transparent, answering all questions honestly and fully, even if it means dredging up painful details.
That makes sense. I imagine for the betrayed partner, having all the information, even if it's really difficult to hear, is essential for starting to process the betrayal and regaining a sense of, reality.
Yeah, it's about creating a foundation of truth,
right?
No matter how painful it might be.
Yeah.
Because as long as there are secrets and unanswered questions, that foundation remains shaky.
Right.
And it's impossible to rebuild trust on unstable ground.
So it's about acknowledging that there's no quick fix.
Right.
No magic wand that can erase the pain or instantly restore trust.
Yeah.
It's about committing to a long and often challenging process of rebuilding.
Absolutely. And this commitment needs to start with the unfaithful partner taking full responsibility for their actions. No excuses, no justifications, no blaming external factors or anything like that.
Right.
It's about owning the choice they made and understanding the impact it's had on their partner and the relationship as a whole.
And that's a huge step, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it requires facing the consequences of their actions and the pain they've caused.
Yeah.
It's about moving beyond, like, self-preservation and prioritizing the healing of the relationship.
It's about demonstrating through their words and actions that they are truly remorseful and genuinely committed to making amends. Because ultimately, rebuilding trust requires more than just words. It requires consistent action day after day that proves their commitment to change.
This is where things start to get really practical. And I'm fascinated by what the research suggests about those concrete actions. What are some of the key steps the unfaithful partner needs to take to start making things right?
Well, the research outlines 3 crucial steps. First, and we've kind of touched on this already, is full disclosure. No holding back details, even if it's incredibly painful. The betrayed partner deserves the truth to start healing.
I imagine this can be a very delicate balance, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's about providing the information the betrayed partner needs to heal without overwhelming them with, like, unnecessary details that might cause more harm than good.
Totally. It's about finding that delicate balance between transparency and sensitivity.
Yeah.
And it often requires seeking guidance from a therapist or counselor who can help navigate these conversations in a way that promotes healing rather than further damage.
So full disclosure is the first step. What else does the research highlight?
The second step is expressing genuine remorse. It's not just about saying, "I'm sorry." It's about demonstrating a deep understanding of the pain caused and expressing true regret for the actions.
It's about moving beyond a surface-level apology.
Yeah.
Really showing that you understand the magnitude of the betrayal and the impact it's had on your partner.
Exactly. It's about empathy, accountability, and a willingness to do whatever it takes to repair the damage. And that leads us to the third crucial step: ending all contact with the affair partner.
Okay.
No exceptions.
This seems like a no-brainer, but I imagine it can be difficult in practice, especially if there are logistical ties, like if they work together
Right.
or shared social circles, that kind of thing.
It can absolutely be challenging, but it's non-negotiable if you're serious about rebuilding trust. It's about drawing a clear boundary and demonstrating that your commitment is solely to your primary relationship.
It sends a powerful message to the betrayed partner
It does.
that you're choosing them, that you're prioritizing the healing of your relationship above all else.
Exactly. It's about action speaking louder than words. But even with these steps in place, the road to recovery is going to be long and challenging, especially for the betrayed partner.
Let's talk about that. What does the research say about the betrayed partner's experience and what they need to heal?
Well, it starts by acknowledging the incredibly intense mix of emotions they're going through. Hurt, anger, confusion, betrayal, grief. It's all completely valid.
Yeah, I can only imagine the emotional roller coaster they're on.
It's a profound sense of disorientation and loss. Yeah. And the research emphasizes the importance of validating those feelings, allowing the betrayed partner to express their pain and anger without judgment or pressure to move on before they're ready.
I think that's so crucial. It's about creating a safe space for them to process their emotions at their own pace,
Right.
knowing that their feelings are valid and deserve to be heard.
It's about honoring their pain and giving them the time and space they need to heal. Because ultimately, healing is not a linear process.
Right.
There will be good days and bad days, moments of progress and moments of regression.
Of course.
And that's okay.
I appreciate that the research acknowledges that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to healing. It's about finding what works for the individual and respecting their unique journey.
And it's about recognizing that healing doesn't happen in isolation. The betrayed partner needs support,
Yeah.
whether it's from trusted friends, family members, a therapist, or a support group.
I imagine that having a safe space to process their emotions, to talk about their experience without judgment, can be incredibly healing.
Absolutely. And the research also stresses the importance of self-care during this time.
Okay.
It's not selfish, it's essential for rebuilding.
That makes sense.
Think about it. If you're completely depleted emotionally, how can you possibly have the energy to work on rebuilding trust?
It's like trying to run a marathon when you're already exhausted.
Exactly.
You need to replenish your reserves.
Yes.
Take care of your physical and emotional well-being in order to have the strength to tackle the challenging road ahead.
It's a great point. Taking care of your own well-being is an act of strength, not weakness.
Yeah.
It allows you to show up more fully for the difficult work ahead.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of honesty, remorse, and ending contact for the unfaithful partner. And we've discussed the betrayed partner's need for validation, support, and self-care. But how do we bridge the gap between those two experiences and actually start to rebuild trust?
That's where things get really interesting, and it's where the research offers some of the most valuable insights. It emphasizes that rebuilding trust is not about words, it's about consistent action.
Okay.
Saying, "I'll change" isn't enough. It has to be demonstrated day after day through tangible behaviors that prove your commitment to change.
So it's about moving beyond promises and apologies and actually showing up differently in a relationship.
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with your words, consistently choosing behaviors that build trust rather than erode it.
Okay.
And the research actually offers some concrete examples of what these trust-building behaviors might look like.
I'm all ears. Tell me more about these concrete actions. What are some of the things couples can do to start rebuilding that shattered foundation?
Well, it starts with creating a culture of transparency in the relationship.
Okay.
This might involve sharing schedules openly, checking in regularly, being upfront about whereabouts, and, just being accountable for your actions.
It's about eliminating any opportunity for secrecy or suspicion, demonstrating that you have nothing to hide. and that you're committed to being open and honest in all aspects of the relationship.
Exactly. And it's about following through on your promises no matter how small. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you make a commitment, honor it.
It's about rebuilding a sense of reliability and dependability,
Yes.
showing that your partner can trust your word and rely on you to follow through.
And it's about being a safe space for your partner to express their feelings and concerns. Listen without defensiveness, validate their emotions, and show empathy for their experience.
I imagine that this type of active listening can be incredibly healing for the
Yeah.
betrayed partner because it shows that their pain is being acknowledged and understood.
It's about showing up with compassion and understanding, demonstrating that you're truly invested in their feeling and that you're willing to do the work to repair the damage you caused.
So it's about more than just saying the right words. It's about embodying a new way of relating to each other,
For sure.
one that's built on honesty, transparency, and a genuine desire to rebuild trust.
And that's the key, isn't it? It's about a fundamental shift in the relationship dynamic, a commitment to creating a new chapter that's defined by mutual respect, honesty, and a deep understanding of each other's needs. But I think it's important to acknowledge that this kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely. Rebuilding trust is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time, patience, and a whole lot of effort. And there will be setbacks along the way, moments of doubt, anger, and frustration.
Oh, yeah.
But the key is to keep showing up, keep working at it, even when it feels difficult.
It's about choosing to rebuild day after day, brick by brick, knowing that the journey is worth it if it leads to a stronger, more resilient, and more fulfilling relationship. And I think that's a great place to pause for today.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think it's important for our listeners to take some time to process these insights and reflect on their own experiences. But before we go, I want to leave everyone with a question to ponder. We've talked a lot about the betrayed partner's need to heal, but what about the unfaithful partner? What are their needs during this process? What does healing look like for them? We'll explore that in our next episode.
That's a great question to consider.
Yeah.
Until next time. It's interesting, we often focus on the tangible actions involved in rebuilding trust.
Yeah.
The apologies, the transparency, the cutting off contact.
Right.
But there's also this deeper emotional layer that needs to be addressed.
I'm intrigued. What are you thinking about specifically?
Well, the research talks about the need for both partners to really understand the underlying emotional dynamics that might have contributed to the infidelity. And it's not about justifying the betrayal, but more about acknowledging that there might be unresolved issues, communication patterns, or unmet needs within the relationship that kind of created a vulnerability there.
So it's about recognizing that infidelity is rarely a simple black and white issue.
Yeah.
There are often these complex factors at play that both partners need to understand and address.
Exactly. It's about taking a deeper look at the relationship dynamics,
Okay.
the communication patterns, and even the individual emotional baggage that each partner brings into the relationship,
I can see how that could be really valuable, even painful, because it forces both partners to confront their own contributions to the breakdown of trust.
It's not about blame, though.
Right.
It's about understanding. Because until you understand the root causes, the patterns that led to the betrayal,
Yeah.
you're more likely to repeat those same patterns, even if you're both committed to rebuilding.
It's like treating the symptoms without addressing the underlying illness.
Yes.
You might get some temporary relief, but the problem will keep resurfacing until you get to the root of it.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And the research actually mentions a specific therapeutic approach that's often used in couples counseling to facilitate this process of understanding and healing. It's called the trust revival method.
I remember we touched on that briefly in the last episode.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to hear more about how it works in practice.
Well, it's based on the understanding that trust is built through consistent, predictable behavior. It's not about, sporadic grand gestures.
Right.
It's about showing up reliably day after day in ways that demonstrate your commitment to the relationship.
So it's like creating this new pattern of interaction,
Yeah.
one that's built on honesty, transparency, and follow through.
Exactly. And one of the key elements of the trust revival method is focusing on attunement.
Attunement. I remember that term from the article, but I'd love to hear you explain it in your own words.
Sure, it's about being fully present and attentive to your partner's needs and emotions.
Okay.
It's about really listening,
Yeah.
not just waiting for your turn to speak, but truly trying to understand what they're experiencing and validating their feelings.
So it's about going beyond just hearing the words
Yeah.
and trying to connect on a deeper emotional level.
That's the heart of it. And this kind of deep listening can be incredibly healing for the betrayed partner because it shows that their pain is being acknowledged and understood.
Right.
It also helps the unfaithful partner develop empathy and a deeper awareness of the impact their actions have had.
It makes sense when you feel truly heard and seen. It's easier to believe that someone is genuinely invested in making things right.
And that's the foundation for rebuilding trust.
Yeah.
It's about creating a safe space where both partners feel comfortable expressing their vulnerabilities
Right.
and working together to heal.
I can see how this approach shifts the focus from blame and defensiveness to understanding and empathy.
It's about moving from a place of me versus you to a place of we.
I like that.
Because ultimately, healing from infidelity requires a team effort, It's about both partners being willing to do the work, to show up for each other, and to create a new dynamic that's built on mutual respect and understanding.
Good. So we've got attunement as a key element.
Yes.
What else is involved in this trust revival method?
Another crucial aspect is transparency.
Okay.
This means being open and honest about your thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Right.
It also means being accountable for your choices and being willing to answer questions without defensiveness or evasion.
I imagine that can be incredibly challenging, especially for the unfaithful partner who might feel ashamed or afraid of causing more pain.
It's definitely not easy, but remember, transparency is not about divulging every single detail of the affair. It's about creating an environment where there are no more secrets, no more hidden agendas.
So it's about rebuilding a sense of safety and predictability, knowing that you can rely on your partner to be honest and upfront, even when it's difficult.
Exactly. And this kind of transparency can actually be incredibly empowering for both partners.
Really?
For the betrayed partner, it helps restore a sense of control and agency.
Okay.
For the unfaithful partner, it can be a step towards taking ownership of their actions and demonstrating a genuine desire to change.
So transparency is about creating this new level of honesty and openness in the relationship, even if it means having those uncomfortable conversations.
Right.
What else does this method emphasize?
Another key element is consistency.
Okay.
Remember, rebuilding trust is not about one grand gesture or a short burst of effort. It's about showing up reliably day after day in ways that demonstrate your commitment to the relationship.
We've talked about those trust building deposits.
Yeah.
The small everyday actions that add up over time.
Yes.
Are those part of this consistency piece?
Absolutely. It's about being present, following through on your promises, being there for your partner when they need you, and consistently choosing the relationship over any temptations or distractions.
So it's about demonstrating through your actions that you're truly invested in rebuilding trust and creating a healthier, more secure relationship.
Yeah.
This really resonates with me because it highlights the fact that rebuilding trust isn't about a grand gesture or a quick fix. It's about showing up consistently,
Yes.
even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it.
That's such a crucial point. It's about making the choice day after day to prioritize the relationship, to choose your partner, and to act in ways that honor that commitment.
It's about putting in the work, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you'd rather avoid those difficult conversations or sweep things under the rug.
And that kind of consistency takes time and effort, There will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt and frustration.
Of course.
But the key is to keep showing up, keep working at it, even when it feels difficult. Because ultimately, the rewards of rebuilding trust are immense.
And those rewards go beyond just salvaging the relationship, don't they?
They do.
It's about creating a deeper level of intimacy, a stronger bond that's been forged in the fire of adversity.
You're absolutely right. It's about transforming the relationship into something more resilient, more authentic, and more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to something we talked about earlier.
Sure.
The idea that even though infidelity is incredibly painful,
Right.
it can actually be a catalyst for growth, both individually and as a couple.
I know we've touched on this concept before, but I'd love to hear you elaborate on it.
Sure.
How can something so destructive actually lead to positive change?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
When infidelity shatters the foundation of a relationship, it forces both partners to confront some hard truths about themselves, their needs, and the dynamics that have been playing out in the relationship. It's like shining a spotlight on the cracks that were already there, even if they were hidden beneath the surface.
It's like that saying, sometimes you have to break something to make it stronger.
Right.
Not that I'm advocating for infidelity, of course.
Of course.
But there's a certain truth to the idea that facing a crisis can force you to reevaluate, to rebuild, and to create something more solid than what you had before.
Exactly. And that's where the potential for growth lies.
Okay.
It's about using the experience of infidelity as an opportunity to learn, to heal, and to create a relationship that's more aligned with your individual and shared values. It's about choosing to rebuild, not from a place of obligation or guilt,
Right.
but from a place of love, intention, and a desire to create something truly extraordinary.
And that's where the concept of forgiveness comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to imagine rebuilding without first finding a way to forgive both yourself and your partner.
Forgiveness is definitely a crucial element in the healing process, and it's something we'll delve into more deeply in our next episode.
Okay.
But it's not about condoning the behavior or pretending it didn't happen. It's about finding a way to release the grip that anger and resentment have on you so that you can move forward, not for the other person, but for your own well-being.
That's a powerful distinction because I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of forgiveness, feeling like it somehow minimizes the betrayal or lets the unfaithful partner off the hook.
It's understandable to feel that way, but true forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of anger and resentment so that you can open your heart to healing and move forward with your life.
It's about choosing to let go of the pain, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve to be free from it.
Exactly, and that's a process that takes time, courage, and a willingness to confront those difficult emotions. But it's a journey worth taking because ultimately forgiveness is the key to unlocking the possibility of a brighter future. Whether you choose to rebuild the relationship or move on to something new.
I love that perspective. It highlights the transformative power of forgiveness, not just for the relationship, but for the individual's own healing and growth.
And it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always the possibility of hope, redemption, and a love that's even stronger than before.
Okay.
But it all starts with choosing to forgive.
Okay, I'm really excited to dive deeper into the topic of forgiveness in our next episode.
Me too.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to reflect on.
Okay.
We've been talking about rebuilding trust in the context of romantic relationships.
Right.
But how do these principles apply to other types of relationships? Friendships, family relationships, even professional relationships?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
Because the principles of trust, honesty, transparency, and consistent action are universal.
Yeah.
They apply to all relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, or professional.
And I think it's important to remember that trust is something we cultivate,
Yeah.
something we nurture through our words and actions. It's not a given.
Yeah.
It's something we earn and something we need to be mindful of in all our interactions.
Beautifully said. And I think that's a perfect place to end our discussion for today.
I agree. Until next time.
Until next time.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. In our last episode, we kind of left off talking about the crucial role of forgiveness in the journey of rebuilding trust after infidelity.
Yeah.
It's a topic that, evokes strong emotions.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I think it's important to really unpack what forgiveness actually means in this context.
Right, because it is often misunderstood, especially when it comes to infidelity.
Right.
People worry that it means condoning the betrayal or minimizing the pain.
Yeah.
But true forgiveness isn't about the person who hurt you. It's about liberating yourself from that weight of resentment and anger.
That's a powerful reframing. I like that.
Yeah.
It shifts the focus from the offender to the person who's been hurt. Right.
Right.
Emphasizing their agency in the healing process.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think of that saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yes, exactly. Forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook.
Right.
It's about recognizing that clinging to anger and bitterness only harms you in the long run. It prevents you from fully healing and moving forward.
Yeah.
Whether you choose to stay in the relationship or not.
Okay, so if we agree that forgiveness is essential for healing,
Yeah.
how does someone actually get there? Like, it's easy to say, let go.
Right.
But how do you actually release that grip of resentment and pain? Especially when the wound is so deep.
It's a profound question, and the research acknowledges that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's a deeply personal journey,
All right.
and it often takes time, introspection, and a willingness to really confront those raw, painful emotions. Some people find solace in therapy, exploring the roots of their anger,
Right.
and developing coping mechanisms. Others find strength in spiritual practices like meditation or prayer, connecting to a sense of peace and understanding beyond the immediate pain.
It seems like finding a path to forgiveness
Yeah,
is really about discovering what resonates with you personally,
exactly.
what helps you process those intense emotions and kind of shift your perspective.
Yeah, it's about giving yourself permission to feel the anger, the hurt, the betrayal,
Right.
but not letting those feelings consume you.
Beautifully said. It's about acknowledging that forgiveness isn't a linear process.
Right.
There will be good days and bad days, moments of progress and moments of regression.
Oh, for sure.
And that's okay. It's about, being patient with yourself
Right.
and trusting that with time and effort, you can find a way to release the pain and move forward.
Absolutely.
This makes me think of another concept that often comes up when discussing forgiveness, the idea of self-compassion.
Yeah.
Can you speak to how that plays a role in healing?
Absolutely. Self-compassion is essential for navigating this difficult terrain.
Yeah.
It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a close friend who's going through a tough time. Imagine a friend confiding in you about a betrayal.
Right.
You wouldn't berate them or tell them to just get over it.
No, of course not.
You'd offer them a safe space to vent, a listening ear, and words of encouragement.
Right.
That's the same compassion you need to extend to yourself.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We're often much harder on ourselves than we are on others.
Cool.
We hold ourselves to these impossible standards, judging ourselves harshly for our mistakes and perceived weaknesses.
And that kind of self-criticism can be incredibly damaging, especially when you're already feeling vulnerable and hurt.
Right.
Self-compassion, on the other hand, allows you to acknowledge your pain without judgment,
Okay.
to offer yourself comfort and support, and to remind yourself that you're worthy of love and forgiveness, even when you've made mistakes.
It's about recognizing that we're all human, we all make mistakes. And that doesn't diminish our worth or our capacity for love and healing.
It doesn't.
So let's say someone has done the work of forgiving, whether it's forgiving their partner, themselves, or both. What happens next?
Yeah.
How does that forgiveness translate into rebuilding the relationship or moving on in a healthy way?
That's where the real transformation begins.
Okay.
Forgiveness creates space for healing, for letting go of the past and embracing the possibility of a new future.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean forgetting or condoning what happened,
Right.
but it allows you to move forward without being weighed down by the baggage of resentment.
It's like clearing the debris after a storm, creating fertile ground for something new to grow.
I love that analogy. It perfectly captures the essence of what forgiveness makes possible.
Yeah.
And what grows in that fertile ground will depend on the individual and the couple.
Right.
For some, it might be a renewed commitment to the relationship, a decision to rebuild stronger than before.
That's where all the work we discussed earlier comes into play, right? The honesty, the transparency, the consistent action.
Exactly.
It's about taking those lessons learned,
Yeah.
those insights gained through the pain,
Yeah.
and using them to create a relationship that's more resilient, more authentic, and more aligned with their shared values.
Exactly. Rebuilding trust after infidelity isn't about going back to the way things were. It's about creating something entirely new.
Right.
It's about acknowledging that the old patterns, the old ways of relating to each other
Yeah.
might have contributed to the breakdown, and consciously choosing to create a new dynamic that's healthier, more fulfilling, and more aligned with what they both truly desire.
That's such an empowering perspective. It highlights the agency that both partners have in shaping the future of their relationship.
Right.
It's about moving from a place of reactivity, reacting to the hurt, the betrayal, the pain, to a place of intentionality, consciously choosing how they want to move forward, what kind of relationship they want to build.
It's about taking back control of their love story and writing a new chapter that's filled with hope, healing, and the possibility of lasting happiness.
And even if the couple ultimately decides to part ways, forgiveness can still be a powerful catalyst for personal growth and healing.
Absolutely. It allows you to let go of the bitterness and resentment, to learn from the experience, and to move forward into a new chapter with greater self-awareness, stronger boundaries, and a deeper understanding of what you need and deserve in a relationship.
So whether you choose to rebuild the existing relationship or embark on a new path,
Yeah.
forgiveness is an essential ingredient in creating a future that's filled with love, joy, and authentic connection.
I agree.
It's about reclaiming your power, honoring your worth, and choosing to live a life that's free from the chains of the past.
Beautifully said, and I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, exploring the complexities of infidelity, the path to forgiveness, and the possibilities for healing and growth.
Yeah.
I hope our listeners have gained some valuable insights and a renewed sense of hope, knowing that even in the face of profound betrayal, love has the power to heal and transform.
It really does.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Thank you.
We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of love.
Absolutely.
So if you're looking for some amazing tips, some resources, some help with relationships, head over to liveasuperchargedlife.com. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.